You know, you could have everything perfect in the world, but if you don't have good relationships, you're probably not as happy. There needs to be a sense of relatedness, so feeling connected, close to people, and there needs to be, the theory says, repeated interaction. So those two pieces make up belongingness.
I think we are in a unique position here.
Who's we? You and me?
You and me,
Ooh.
because we can offer communication advice for relationships.
Oh, I don't know if I can offer advice.
What do you think?
Well,
Last left off. Okay.
uh-huh.
I was thinking about it. The last time we recorded, we were trying to end quickly because our dog was super sick.
Oh, yeah.
And immediately after that, we had to take him to the doggy ER.
Oh, poor Sonny.
And
He's much better.
he's much better now. And he may pop in the frame.
Yeah.
But
6 months later.
we bought him. Well, he went on a vet shopping spree after that.
He did.
He did.
$700.
But we were really concerned, so it was worth it,
And then got inconclusive results,
which was a bit frustrating.
but he got better.
Yeah.
He bounced back.
Well, tell the guests, how have you been since then?
How have I been? I've been good.
I said tell the guests, tell the listeners.
Oh, yeah. Isn't that funny? Like my brain automatically replaced guests with listeners. I didn't even notice that.
Mm-hmm.
I've been good. I'm happy to be back on Talk to People podcast.
And has there been something in your head since the last episode that you've said, oh man, I wish I would have talked about X, or I wish I would have said Y?
You know, at the moment, I can't think of something that I was thinking about retroactively to do in another episode.
Mm-hmm.
I'm actually surprised I wasn't jotting down ideas for
Writing
my
stuff down?
next appearance.
Yeah.
No, but I do think often about, I want to talk to you. I want to turn the tables.
Yeah.
I want to talk to you about, you're almost 6 months into this thing. So I'd love for you to give some airtime to that, talking about your experience. But in thinking about something I wish I would have talked about or something I would have done differently, I think that the thought that's coming to mind right now is that I'm learning every single day how to be a better communicator. And I fail a lot. A lot. You know, I think that's an important piece of the puzzle.
Yeah.
Like today, I failed quite a few times. Wasn't the best communicator.
Already.
And it's only
8 a.m.
We're just shy of noon. No.
Yeah. That's true. And we're constantly getting better.
Constantly. And I think that's, it's easy to think about what textbooks say and what theories say and what research says. And all of those things are really important. But when it gets down to it, how do you practice that? And implementing that is so important for your relationships. And, like just the other day, I realized the last week I was a terrible texter. And some text messages I read them. And then even several times I was like, oh, what a nice message. And I got distracted with doing something else. And my rule of thumb is I always go back to it. But there are a few that went a little longer than I like. And go ahead.
What's your latency expectation for how quickly to text back?
How long is too long? We should ask my friend Amy. She was the one who said to me, Annie, I always know you will respond. And I'm sure there's been a time where I haven't accidentally to like a quick exchange, but she's very gracious. So the friends on the receiving end of that, they should really be the ones to say how long is too long.
A lot of people would identify as bad texters.
Why do you think that is? Because it's probably the most, I'd like to see the numbers on this, but I think it's the most frequently utilized
form of communication.
Yes.
Well,
mode of communication.
The reason why it's the most utilized, in my opinion, is because it's the easiest and the most low effort, most accessible.
Oh, for sure. But I completely agree. It's as close to it's asynchronous, right? But when you get in a flow, it gets pretty close to synchronous if you're in a really, the text exchange, the response is really quick.
And have you been in those text exchanges where each person's responding super quickly?
My dad and I this morning.
And it's...
He was asking me, he said, did you tune into the coronation? And I said, can you believe I actually didn't? And he texts back right away, I actually can't believe that. And then we just kept rolling.
It feels great.
It feels great. Like, even thinking about it puts a smile on my face. Obviously, because it's my dad, but also that, especially when you live far away from somebody, the immediacy that texting can bring is fascinating. But then also it can be very, like we were just saying, the bigger question to me is, if it's a mode that we use so frequently, why are so many people so bad at it? And I think there are lots of reasons for that.
What do you think?
One piece is, I think, attention spans. We get a text, we see it, distracted by something else. That happens to me all the time. Right? Or even, there have been times, admittedly, this is terrible, but I'm talking to somebody. This happened at work a few weeks ago. I'm talking to somebody and I get a text and I look at it and I read it, and then I interrupt. Not only do I not respond to the text, I interrupt the face-to-face that's going on.
To respond to the text?
Well, to read it. To read it.
And right, you end up not responding to the text and you end up interrupting
probably sometimes I text back right then and there, but the worst part for me is that I've interrupted that face-to-face interaction.
Are you aware of any studies that look at texting versus talking on the phone versus video chat?
Yes, we researched that. So I was in basically like a digital communication class and digital world. So communicating in the digital world. And we did look at a lot of studies. A lot of times what's used, and actually there are experts that are far more knowledgeable than me on this, but one thing that stood out to me is looking at a mode of communication, computer mediated communication. So there's some go-between. Looking at factors such as, is it synchronous or asynchronous?
And what do you mean by that?
Is it synchronous, meaning real-time, constant flow of communication. So that loop is like this. Whereas asynchronous, I might send a message to you, but you might not receive it or get back to me for like 3 hours. That would be asynchronous.
Yeah, and I think of, when you say asynchronous, I think of online classes. Synchronous classes were meeting together at the same time every week.
That's a good way to put it. And
everyone's doing it together. And then asynchronous, you can do it on your own time.
Yes. So the reason I bring the synchronous, asynchronous up is because there are several factors that researchers look at in terms of that. I don't even want to say computer mediated communication because it's really not. I'm going to say digital or more virtual interactions. And, FaceTime. FaceTime is great because another cue or another factor is richness. With FaceTime, it's synchronous. There's a lot of richness to it in that you see somebody's face. You see their facial expressions. That's different than talking on the phone. That's synchronous, but you're missing all of the nonverbal cues that you were just talking about. And so FaceTime is actually really neat because it's as close to that in-person interaction that I think you can get from talking to people through technology. Mm-hmm. That was it, Relating Through Technology. Great book by Jeff Hall.
Dr. Jeff Hall.
Dr. Jeff Hall.
Legend,
mentor.
Yeah.
But going back to the texting thing, why are we bad at it? Attention span. I think one factor that I would love to see in texting while on phones is the ability, like an email, to mark something as unread. So in email, you can go in and read something, and then if you want to go back to it, mark it as unread. I wish we could do that with text messages because...
You can.
You can?
Yeah.
How?
You just hold it down.
What?
And click mark as unread.
Can I do it right now?
Go for it.
Can I try it in real time?
Sure.
Okay. I looked up if we could do that, and I didn't think you could. Okay, how do I do it?
Hold it down. Hold the text conversation down. Mm-hmm. Or slide it. Mark as unread.
Mark as unread. That's great. Because then I think most people, if they're like me, are bugged by the little number icon near their messages.
And you want to get rid of it.
And you want to get rid of it. In order to get rid of it,
You have to respond.
You have to respond. And that's just like down to how our brains work with things like that. But also you get a lot of, meaning from being able to text people back.
Yeah. And you said the attention span. Mm-hmm. Do you think our attention spans are getting worse, or do you think there's merit behind that?
I do think they are getting worse.
Do you think we could change that?
I do. I think there are many people. I should say this. I think it's plausible to say that, and I think evidence would support that there is a trend leaning toward shorter attention spans. You laughing at my coffee?
No. You're just so cute. It's so fun to have you as a podcast guest.
Thanks, Chris.
Mm-hmm. So I get to watch my wife talk, and I smile the whole time.
Hey. Oh, you're so cute. Be careful what you wish for. First, third time guess.
Oh, yeah. You want to come back on for a third time?
Yeah. I'm signing myself up. Okay.
You definitely will, as long as you don't become enemies with the producer.
Sonny.
He's the studio mascot. I'm the producer.
Well, your studio mascot's nowhere to be found.
Yeah, he does that sometimes.
So what I was saying is I do think there's a trend toward shorter attention spans, but I also think that there are many people who are able to, through mindfulness, being more mindful about just how we spend time, mindful about engaging with others. So mindfulness is a practice, yes, but also just the idea of implementing mindfulness into everyday life. I think there are many people who are probably really mindful and are able to bring themselves so much to that present moment that those distractions that other people would fall into, they're able to harness and stay focused.
That's cool.
And that is like, talk about social fitness, right? Like that's a muscle to remind your brain, like, nope, got to get back to this conversation. Like that is, you should have a scientist on.
The Lawrence version of Andrew Huberman.
Yes.
I imagine we have one at KU.
Oh yeah.
I need to look into that.
Yeah, you should, because the wiring of the brain is fascinating, and the ability to rewire.
So I've been thinking about this. I was talking to someone who knows a lot about organizational excellence, and I was talking to them about the podcast. They shared with me a lot of interdisciplinary approaches, which was good, because sometimes I will think of, this podcast is about social fitness. It's about making sure people are equipped to build community, to get better at building great relationships. With that in mind, I'll think to myself, that means I need to have all these communication professionals on, which is true. I should have a lot of people who are great at communication, but at the same time, I need to have psychologists on who share why it's important. I need to have neuroscientists on who share the brain wiring and explain everything that motivates us to have the relationships, biologists, comedians, everybody, and use that interdisciplinary approach to create and bolster this whole idea of it's important to be socially fit.
I love that approach. And also, when you think about, yes, all those different areas of expertise are important, and gaining a better understanding of relationships and how to build and maintain relationships. But at the end of the day, all those different types of people you just mentioned, they're all people who are in their own circles building, maintaining relationships, because at the end of the day, every single person has a need to belong. It's universal. So it's cool to think about it that way too. Like, yes, these people are experts in their fields, but also have real life experiences that can shed some light on what it means to talk to people and have relationships.
And you studied need to belong a little bit.
I did.
What do you mean when you say need to belong?
There is a well-known theory called need to belong theory.
NTB.
Baumeister and Leary.
What year?
Oh, I think it's 1995.
1995. My birth year.
Is it 1995?
I don't know. My birth year is.
No, I know your birth year.
I don't know about the theory though.
Maybe it's 94. I don't know. Whatever. But that theory basically states that every human has a need to belong. So belongingness, the idea of connectedness. How this theory defines it is 2 dimensions, relatedness and interaction. So I'm boiling it down to very simple terms. And this is, like I said, there are other experts who know more about it than I do, but I really was fascinated by the idea that there needs to be a sense of relatedness, so feeling connected, close to people, and there needs to be, the theory says, repeated interaction. So those 2 pieces make up belongingness. And what's so cool about this theory is that it's a need. And when you think of something in terms of a need, what do you think of when you think of like needs?
Hunger.
Yeah. What
Safety.
else? Safety.
Social approval.
Right. And so think about it in terms of what does it mean to not have those things? In some case, survival, right? If you don't have food, if you don't have water.
It is essential.
It's essential. And so I was so struck by the idea that belongingness, feeling close, connected to people, literally talking to people, interaction is so vital that the result of not having that is pretty bad.
And we're seeing that.
So that was really where I fell in love with research. I already was studying communication, but that's where I fell in love with research. And so anyhow, I really like that the idea of belongingness is the underlying foundation of this, but of just, if you think of any group, any organization, anything that you're a part of with other people, belongingness is at the foundation of that. Your morning soccer league. You all love soccer, but I'm sure it also gives you belongingness, right?
Big time.
Yeah. Even work, right? Like I go to work and I do a job, but I also strive for belongingness there. And I'm grateful that I feel that sense of belongingness.
Yeah. Mm-hmm. We all have a variety of social structures that we can get the belongingness from.
Mm-hmm. Yes.
And we can create those.
Just like you did.
And that's something that's been weighing on me is entrepreneurship, innovation, creativity isn't limited to art, and it's not limited to business. It can also be incorporated into bringing people together. Mm-hmm. And there are probably a lot of people who would relate to this, but I feel like this is something you're good at.
Oh boy. Snacking.
Bringing people together. And I feel like a lot of the people we get along with are good at it as well. Mm-hmm. Not everybody, of course, mm-hmm. but whenever you're a natural gatherer, or you may not be a natural gatherer, but you can be intentional about initiating. Mm-hmm. That is so good. Creating that social structure, because you need it, but then everybody else needs it. And there may not be someone who's good at it, mm-hmm. but who can benefit from it.
Totally. See, I feel like you're really good at that. You're really good at initiating. You're really good about putting yourself out there to bring people back in, right?
Yeah.
Like talking to somebody new and bringing them into a group. And part of it for me is I talk about how important belongingness is and how I love people, because I do, and I love relationships, and it's so satisfying. You know, there's a reason that, you know, you could have everything perfect in the world, but if you don't have good relationships, you're probably not as happy. I'd rather have not as much material wealth or items, but be really happy with the people that I'm around. Mm-hmm. But then again, there's a study about more income, more wealth gives you the ability to build, like there's a correlation between those things. When you think about like resources, right? I've got money to travel to go see this friend. So
yeah, I can make it to your wedding.
So that's a piece too, where I don't want to oversimplify it, but something that I almost feel, I guess, hypocritical about is that like I said, I get a lot from relationships and I love building them, but I also am guilty of, I told somebody last night that I'm an extroverted homebody. So I love people. I get energy from being around people, but I also love to be at home. Some people would argue with that. It's not that I like to be at home alone. I like to be at home with people. That's the piece, like have people here. So the other night we had a big group here and it was so much fun. We were laughing and we were rolling, as one of our friends would say. And it just felt so like that. I was so happy the next day because my heart felt so full of having these people gather in here in this space. But it's really easy for me to be like, no, I don't want to go to that. I'm good to stay at home. And part of that's probably COVID, if I'm being honest. But then again, even before COVID, I would do that. I would say my movie's on, or, you know, like my friends would say, let's go out and go do something. Now, if I had the idea in my head that I was going to stay home and watch my movie, I would do that even if I were alone. So
at all means necessary.
At all means necessary. So it's complicated. It's not as easy. Whoops. It's not as easy as, belongingness. Do things in groups, build relationships. Because there are times where I have to force myself to go. Not because I don't want to see people. Because once I'm there, I love it, right?
Yeah. It's like exercise. We know the benefits of exercise, but it's still hard to do.
Yeah.
And the people
Not for me. I don't even sweat.
That's awesome.
I just glow.
You do glow. You're glowing now. But a lot of the people who exercise, they know it's good, but they're not crazy about it. I think we're in a unique I think we are in a unique position here.
Who's we? You and me?
You and me.
Ooh.
Because we can offer communication advice for relationships.
Oh, I don't know if I can offer advice.
What do you think?
Well, I guess, we've got real experiences, right? I just feel like I have a lot more to learn.
Oh, I have a ton to learn.
But I guess you can still be in a place and be able to speak from your experience and give advice even if you've got more to learn. I don't think we ever stop learning, so.
Would you say it's important to communicate in a relationship?
Yes.
Why?
Because that is how you build. Literally, that communication is how you build with somebody. You foster that connection. You maintain that connection. Something I feel like we haven't given enough light to is maintenance. Relational maintenance. Because starting a relationship or friendship comes with its own thing, right? And you've got to interact, you've got to build, but also once you're in a relationship, you've got to be able to maintain.
True.
Yeah.
And a lot of people sleep on maintenance, right?
And a lot of people sleep on maintenance and being intentional about maintaining relationships, whether it's a friendship or in a marriage or family, like taking intentional time to maintain that relationship.
Because it's not as sexy as the other parts. As building or asking someone out for the first time or breaking up or dumping with somebody, terminating relationships.
Yeah.
The mundane, the in-between.
Yeah.
It doesn't have all the glitz and glamour.
No.
But it's just as important.
It is. In fact, somebody told me once, did I say this on the last episode, that a lot of the growth happens in between things? I don't think I said that, but somebody told me it was my 23rd birthday, 22nd or 23rd. And I was interning at a place and they all took me out to lunch for my birthday. And I loved them so much. But I asked them, like, what's your best piece of advice? And everybody went around the table. And somebody said, this has really stuck with me. Somebody said, a lot of the growth happens in between these big moments. And of course, growth happens in big moments, right? You graduate college, big moment, a lot of growth. You're really proud. You, get your first job, or maybe it doesn't even have to be school or academic related or professional.
Go skydiving
for the first time. But it's those moments in between where you really can dig deep and learn a lot from. And I think that, like, at a personal level, I found that to be true. But I also think you can map that onto relationships. Like, in between the milestones, like in between when you get married and when you buy a house, right? A lot of times, I remember she was saying, a lot of people, it's like on to the next thing. But how can you make that in-between time really meaningful? And I think that's relationship maintenance falls in the in-between time. I mean, it's ongoing, right? But how are you going to take that time where, let's say, maybe things are more routine or mundane? That's not a bad thing. So how are you going to be intentional about that time to maintain?
How do you do it?
How do I do it?
Yeah.
One thing that you and I do is that we try to do, like, each week we try to do something, the two of us, whether it's like go out to dinner or like go for a walk in a new place, like novelty. I think going somewhere new, doing a new adventure, it doesn't even have to, oftentimes we don't even do anything that costs money, you know?
Mm-hmm.
Taking Sunny somewhere.
That makes me think of excitation transfer.
Oh, yeah. Yeah.
Which
You wanna
is
talk about that?
a cool concept.
Mm-hmm.
And a lot of people use it in dating, but it happens, you can use it to your advantage in a committed relationship long term. And in dating, what a lot of people refer to is, say you meet someone for the first time, and the first date is
Oh, yeah.
you go to MLB game, and then after that you go to the coolest ice cream shop that's always on Instagram,
Yeah.
and then you end the night with a live performance by the weekend. And you're like, oh my gosh, that was so much fun. That was so exciting. And then the next date, you go skydiving for the first time. And then after skydiving, you get to swim with dolphins.
Oh, yeah.
And there's all these exciting things. And we have a tendency of projecting the excitement we're getting from doing these novel things onto the individual.
Yeah.
Yeah. So it's similar to infatuation and the idea that we're overloaded with all this stuff and we like fall in love immediately. But instead, it's rather than the individual, it's the things that you do that we project onto the individual.
Yeah.
Yet, that being said, you can use that in long-term committed relationships by doing new things together, exciting things together to improve the strength of the relationship.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Agreed.
And there's
Agreed,
that.
because those things aren't inherently bad. Like, it's good to do fun things. We all love fun things.
Right.
And you're making a memory. And if it's really intentional, like last year, and we're doing it again this year, if my guess is correct about a surprise.
What?
Are you going to confirm it?
You
Oh,
haven't said
last
what.
year when you took me to go see musical at the Starlight Theater, a theater outside under the stars. And it was incredible. Like, the show was incredible, but also to be there and to do something so fun that I love, but now you've become a musical fan as well.
Oh, and I love that musical
And you love
too.
that musical.
Yeah.
So it's great that we can do that together. And I think we're going again in a few weeks. Did you buy the tickets?
TBD.
Stay tuned for episode 3.
Stay tuned.
But I think another oh, go ahead. You had a thought.
Nope. You have another thing.
I was going to say, obviously, making plans for things regularly, I think, is good, whether, especially like in a marriage, but also in a friendship, also in a family relationship. You know, one practice that I am trying to, my siblings are amazing people. I love them so much. And I'm so grateful that I get a brother and a sister, but also 2 best friends. And I love the dynamic that the 3 of us grew up with. And now the dynamic that I get to see with you in the mix as well. It's so special. And I'm so grateful for that. And one thing that I am trying to do is also take time to be with my siblings, just one-on-one, because that's really important too. So like the other day I went with Jimmy to eat lunch, and we went to Panera and ate lunch, and I got to catch up with him. And Mia and I are making plans. There's the mascot. Mia and I are making plans this week to go get our nails done. So it's that one-on-one time with people. It doesn't have to be in the context of a marriage or dating, like romantic relationship, but family too, or friends, you know. Just last week I was visiting my hometown, and I had the opportunity to see three. I got to see 3 of my longest, oldest like friends, and it was so neat to reconnect with them. And one thing maintenance wise with friendships, I think, is there's something to be said for, sorry, Sunny here, like being able to reminisce with people. I think that's a great tool to maintain a relationship. I think humor is great. So this extends friendship, but also non-friendship. But humor is a great way to maintain relationships, using communication and being able to like laugh with somebody, I think, is really great.
Yeah. Humor, checking in, hanging out one-on-one time. What's the rubber band theory? For instance, there's axioms, and one is someone doing like novelty versus consistency or sameness. And you have all these different axioms with one may be extroversion versus introversion, and
Oh.
everybody falls on a different
On a continuum.
But you and I are in different places on that continuum. So our relationship is all about this rubber band that we're pulling back and forth, back and forth. And I may want to go to this community event at this place that we don't know about and we don't know anyone, but I want to go completely for the novelty and to meet people. But you may want to have something a bit more
routine,
predictable. It's predictability.
Predictability.
Yeah, it's predictability.
I'm laughing because that just happened.
Novelty and predictability. And everybody falls in a different place on that. And you have to be mindful of how you pull that rubber band, because if you're not careful, rubber bands snap. So if you're constantly doing this predictable thing, then after a while, that person who needs novelty will attempt to not need novelty, but ultimately they'll need it.
Yeah.
You know? And I'm trying to think of what that theory is.
I don't know that theory.
Yeah, the rubber band theory.
Yeah,
it's a communication theory.
Oh, really?
Yeah.
So do you think it's a psychology theory? Because a lot of theories are borrowed from psychology.
Possibly.
Could be. I think that's a really important piece. And I also think one of the things that I meant to say as we started this part of the conversation is that sometimes I feel like this is such a good dilemma to have, that my sense of belonging is so satisfied and so full that I don't need to go do other things. You know, like, and I'm so grateful that I've got such close friends, like, who don't live near us, but I feel so close to, even though there's geographic separation. I'm so grateful for that because it's so special and unique to have that. And the friends in my life that I am thinking of right now are just salt of the earth people who there's such an affinity for, and who there's still maintenance that goes into that, of course. And I think that certainly has something to do with the connectedness that I feel from far away. But it's a good dilemma to have, to feel like your sense of belonging is so satisfied.
Do you feel lonely?
Do I feel lonely?
Often?
Yeah. No. Yeah, no. I thought you were going to say sometimes. I feel lonely sometimes, but typically when I feel lonely, it's when I'm anxious about something. Not because I'm actually lonely.
And you want somebody to process the anxiety with you, or like, why do you think that leads to you feeling lonely?
Maybe because sometimes it feels
Maybe like overwhelming,
or maybe consuming, or maybe you feel like in a moment, or I feel like in a moment of really intense anxiety that nobody, it's not that nobody would understand, because I've got people in my life who I know when I'm having intense anxiety, I'm calling them up.
You can hit them
speed dial. And I do that. I actively do that. But maybe it's that sometimes I feel like, even though I know other people experience it, that it's these moments are, I just wish like, oh, I wish I didn't have to have this anxiety, like this burden of anxiety. And so that can make me feel a little lonely maybe.
Yeah.
Yeah.
What would you
And maybe it's not loneliness. Maybe it's just like sadness about this being something that I struggle with instead of loneliness. Because I really don't feel lonely. Because I feel very connected to people. To you, my siblings, my friends, my parents, coworkers.
And having that insight to figure out, is this sadness or is this loneliness?
Yeah. Insight. Critical.
There is a Harvard psychologist, the chair of psychology right now, Susan David.
Oh, yeah. I listened to her on a podcast.
And she talks about emotional agility. And being emotionally agile is being able to know what you're feeling, how you're feeling it, and then how to get from there to where you want to go.
Oh, that's good.
But then if you combine her with Brene Brown, Brene Brown has books. She has one book. Is it the Atlas to the Heart? There's one book that she has where she goes through like over 100 different emotions.
Oh yeah, I haven't read it, but you've told me about it.
And you can, like, shame and guilt. She loves those.
Oh yeah, I was just watching her video on it.
Yeah, you can go through, and she talks about all of those, but then she'll talk about feeling overwhelmed or feeling anxious or feeling stressed and how all of those things are different. But
They are different.
yeah, it's great to know.
And being able to label properly, that's a real, because sometimes if you're like me, I feel things that you can feel things deeply and you can feel multiple things at a time. So sometimes when I'm really excited about something, physiologically, my body's like, oh, I'm anxious, but I'm actually just really excited.
Yeah.
You know, or
right.
like, oh, I feel lonely. No, I'm actually just sad.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's a real gift. I'm still fine tuning that.
You're getting really good at it. So what's been your favorite date this past year that we've gone on?
My favorite date
In
in the last calendar year? In
the
2023?
last 12 months. Right.
Oh, sorry. Yeah, I meant year to date.
Yeah, year to date. Favorite date year to date.
That's tough. There are two that come to mind.
Okay.
But I love that we can make a lot of mundane things really fun. So that, like, some of my favorite times are like hanging out with you and Sunny.
Yeah.
But I really loved going to see that musical, Under the Stars, that we're about to go see again. Same venue, different musical.
And we got to eat the buffet. Remember that?
Oh yeah, we did. That was a real experience. And we got a funnel cake, didn't we? Didn't we get funnel fries?
Yeah, and you got something else, I think. Like a soda, maybe, or
probably. I'm all about the experience.
Yeah.
So if it means getting the popcorn at the place, you bet your bottom dollar I'm getting the popcorn.
And you said there was another one.
Oh yeah, that was one of them. The musical Under the Stars was absolutely lovely. And then there was a night you and I we went to dinner in downtown Lawrence, and we got one of my favorite dishes. Can you guess? I love food, so it's probably, there's a lot of favorites.
What is it?
Singapore noodles.
Oh, yeah. That's one of your recent favorites.
One of my recent favorites, yeah. I go through waves.
It just recently entered the favorite rank, I think.
I would say in the last 6 months.
Yeah,
Yeah.
right.
We went and got Singapore noodles. You had food envy because you got something else.
Mm-hmm. Why do I deal with food envy so much?
I think here's the thing. I think I just have a really good, when I see a menu, boom, I can pick out a really good dish. I'm seasoned.
You're good at picking out food.
I'm good at picking out food. I'm a good eater.
And I can have a hard time with decision making whenever it comes to picking food.
Yes.
So what do I typically do?
You will typically order something, and then you'll have some of mine. You'll order you'll order the biggest thing on the menu that's usually a mix of a lot of things.
Yeah.
And typically that's not the best menu item.
Right.
I think sometimes your brain sees quantity.
I think my brain sees quantity, and then I think
Variety.
I won't have FOMO if I order a little bit of
everything. Right.
But then what happens is it's like the quantity over quality, and I end up getting something that I'm not crazy about. For instance, we recently went to a Mexican restaurant, and I got something off the menu called a little bit of everything. And I was not amazed.
And I got something that was on your dish, but I got just that, and I loved it.
Yeah.
Yeah. So anyhow, we did that. We went to dinner downtown. We walked downtown. It was so nice. It was still warm. I think it was in the fall, and it was still warmish. And so we walked up and down the downtown, and then we went to the grocery store afterwards and got ice cream and brought it home. And there was a really good sale.
Oh, that's right.
That was the sale on the
Halo
ice cream.
Top for $2.
Yeah.
Wild.
Deal of the century.
Something happened.
Yeah. I think it was a misprint.
A misprint that we took advantage of because we went back to the store
And told friends about it.
4 or 3 times.
4 times.
Four times.
And I'm just going to say that supply should have lasted us a lot longer than it did.
But we had a lot of people over.
We did have a lot of people over, and we got to have people over and was like, hey, do you want a pint?
Mm-hmm.
Do you want your own pint?
Mm-hmm. We got to share
So it
it.
was great.
So you shared 2 different dates here. What in your mind?
What about you?
What about
Tables
me?
have turned.
What's been
Welcome to the Talk to Annie podcast.
What's been one of the favorite?
Yeah.
Dates
What's been one of your favorite dates?
Our waitress date, the musical date,
So awesome.
was incredible.
Mm-hmm.
And we had a blast doing that.
Mm-hmm.
And then we've had some really good nights on the grill over here.
We have.
Grilling up burgers or chicken or pizza.
Catching the thing on fire.
Catching a thing on fire.
Yeah, the drip pan.
The grease fire.
The grease fire. Yeah, we have to navigate that.
And then we've gone to
Pizza on the grill.
Big City, Topeka, to go to Olive Garden a couple times.
Yeah.
And that's been
true.
fun. Soup,
Yeah.
salad,
Breadsticks. Yep.
But I get the chicken parm.
Yep.
And
Club soda with a lemon.
I'm not complaining.
Mm-mm.
So those have been some of my favorite dates. I think we've had a lot of fun. Just hanging out.
Yeah.
I like activity.
You do.
I like throwing the ball.
Yeah, or like going to play pickleball or basketball.
Going to play pickleball, basketball.
Going for a walk.
I love activity.
Yeah.
So I love being able to sit down and talk with you.
Mm-hmm.
But I connect with people
Mm-hmm.
almost even better whenever I'm side by side rather than face to face. Whenever I'm doing
Interesting.
something with people.
Yeah.
And I think that's what compels me to go play soccer with people or go put these think tank sessions together or to meet people who are in a similar thing than I am.
Yeah.
Yeah. To work on this podcast or to further this podcast. So you had questions. Yeah. What questions do you have?
I want to know, like, what is something, I want to talk about the podcast a little bit because the last time I was on was the very start. So we recorded that episode in November, right?
Yeah.
It launched in January. It was released in January, but the start of the podcast. And now we're in May. So you've been doing this a little bit now. What's one thing that you are proud of? One thing that you learned and one thing that you would do differently next time?
Ooh. Dang.
Good cues.
Get her on the mic.
She's on the mic. Say no more.
I have a mic in front of me
I've got the mic.
right here. Yeah. What is one thing that I am proud of?
Yep, let's start with that.
I'm so proud I was able to get you as a guest.
Tough get.
I am proud.
Hey, really tough when they're knocking on your door saying, when can I?
I am really proud that I have had a collection of conversations with a variety of different people.
Yeah. And that the way that the conversations that you've had, it's not just like, oh, I know this person, let's have them on the podcast. There are people that you didn't know that you got connected to or that you know, it's so neat that you had to seek out. It wasn't just like, all right, all these podcast guests appear on your doorstep.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and soon I'll be at the point to where the majority of people who've been on this podcast are people I don't know.
Yeah.
Which is exciting.
Yeah.
Because there's opportunities to build new relationships.
And it takes extra effort to be like, hey, can you? I
It
want to.
does.
Yeah.
And one of
I'm
the
proud
things,
of you too.
Thank you, Annie. One of the things that I was thinking of was I enjoy being able to meet new people.
Yeah.
And I also am intentional. The people I have on, they exemplify what I'm talking about.
Yeah.
And I want to maintain that
Yeah.
integrity.
Yeah.
Something I wish I had done different.
So that's what you've learned. What's the piece? So you said something you're proud of.
Something I've
Something
learned
that
is
you've
that
learned.
it takes a lot longer than I expected
Yeah.
to do all of this.
Yeah.
Another thing I've learned is that when you're creative, you also have to be incredibly gracious with yourself.
Yeah.
And that's one thing I've been trying to tell a whole bunch of different people right now is the essence of creativity is that it did not exist prior to when you created it.
Yeah.
That being said, bringing it out into this world, inherent to that is a risk.
Yep.
There's a reason why it wasn't created prior to you. Maybe a person didn't have the skill set you had mixed with your personality. Or maybe there is a cost to bring it to the world. But one of the costs with any creativity is being self-critical.
Yeah.
So I've been learning that a lot. And I know there's self-critical nature with a lot of people, but being graciously creative is something I'm trying to learn right now. And I've been learning.
Well, as an outsider, you're definitely exemplifying that. And I think that the way I see it, we're always we're hardest on ourselves, right? Sometimes we can be our own worst enemy in terms of being self-critical. And so it's much easier said than done. But I think about what you've been able to do and where you started. And I'm like, oh my goodness, you really have, you jumped in, you learned something completely new. You built something. I don't think people realize, to your point, that an episode start to finish, to recording to sending it out, how long that takes and how many steps there are. And that to me is just one example of where it's like, you should give yourself a lot of credit because you're doing a great job. And I'm really proud of you.
Thank you. And I can tell you're proud of me. You're a great support system.
And I know I keep joking about me being on the mic. I'm just doing bits here. No, I am doing bits. I really am so happy for you. And I love that I get to sit here and talk to you. And I think we should do a whole episode just for the listeners. My idea for the second episode was for me to like interview you all about the podcast.
And then what happened?
You didn't want that.
I was up for it. I think
you said it should just be a conversation. And you said I want to talk about relationships more.
Oh, I do. Because I think a lot of people wonder about relational communication.
Yeah.
Like, I think a lot of people want to know how to improve their communication, their relationships. And I think you are such a great source of info. But I know you don't feel that way sometimes.
No, I don't. Like today, I don't. I actually feel like a lousy communicator.
Right. But
don't you think people could relate to that?
Yeah. I think the majority of people can relate to it. But you taught relational communication for 2 years at a university.
I did.
You studied it for a year in a PhD program.
I did.
You've done research on it for years. And then now you are working for an organization that you're crushing it at. But then you're also managing all these other relationships outside of work.
Yeah.
So you're a source of authority.
Well, thanks, Chris.
Yeah.
Well, now I feel like we should re-record so I can share more wisdom. Just kidding.
Yeah. You are wise.
No.
Pretty and wise.
Thanks, Chris.
So what's one thing
that you do differently?
One thing I would do differently?
Yeah, don't weasel your way out of that one, Buster.
Is you're like that guy, Larry King.
Larry King?
Mm-hmm. He made sure nobody weaseled their way out of questions. Do you know Larry King?
In my head, I know who Larry King is. In my head, I was thinking of Jerry Springer, but I don't know why.
You're like Jerry Springer.
Maybe because, he just passed away and he was in the news.
Oh, Jerry Springer just passed away?
Yeah.
As far as communication goes, there's something to say that Jerry Springer knew what he was doing, because for those of you who watched Jerry Springer, it was about getting relational conflict on the stage and then having them work it out in not so constructive ways. But you have to be aware of how to navigate conflict to create the spectacle of conflict.
Yeah.
Maybe you don't. Maybe you can just do it. But one thing I would have done differently is I've spent so much time thinking about how to do this and thinking about getting on the right guests and the right questions to ask and what is my niche? Who are the people? Who is my audience?
Yeah.
I wish for a lot of people that they could focus less on all that stuff they can't control and more on, okay, I'm going to
just do it.
I'm going to upgrade my software, meaning I'm going to read books.
Yeah.
I'm going to talk to people and learn from them.
Yeah.
I'm going to focus on how to edit a video, how to record a podcast, all of those things. If you want to market, I'm going to focus on marketing. The outcome, the lag measures, man, Woman, worry about those less.
Yeah.
Yeah.
That's, oh my gosh, it's really wise. What a great thing to end on.
Mm-hmm.
Worry about those less.
So, what is one thing you wish more people knew about you?
Ooh, this is a question I told you to ask every guest.
I got to give it to you, right?
What is one thing that I wish everybody knew about me? It's a tough one.
You know,
Tough one.
I heard like the ethnographer's rule.
Mm-hmm.
So for those who do ethnography,
Yes, ethnographic work.
don't ask a question you wouldn't answer yourself.
Oh, no, that's a great rule of thumb. But I'm thinking like there are a few things. I think one that sometimes can be, I don't want to bring it back to this because I talked about this in the first episode, but sometimes I think people could see me as somebody who is like really socially confident. And a lot of times I do have a little bit of social anxiety that I try to push through. So I don't know if I wish people knew that about me, but it's like, hey, if you see somebody who you think is like maybe confident or like presents themselves confidently and you think to yourself like, oh man, that can never be me. Like on the inside, that's not me.
Yeah.
You know, I don't know. I wish I had something that I feel like I need more thought on that. Like what is one thing I wish more people knew about me or people knew about me? I don't know. I don't know. Just that I'm continuing to grow and improve. And I hope to, if I haven't been a good friend or a good, like I'm hoping to improve every single day. And I hope to, I don't know.
Amen, Bubby.
Okay, we'll end it there.
One thing I wish more people knew about me.
Yeah.
Is that I have such a sweet tooth and I'm struggling with my glucose consumption.
Oh, glucose. Okay.
Sugar.
Sugar,
All right.
sugar.
Annie,
Wait, that was a good answer. Now I need to redo mine.
thank you for being here. It was a blast to have you on.
Can I do the sign off?
Yeah. Go for it.
Did you hear that, Sean?
Go for it.
Dogsit.
All right, folks. We will see you next time.
Chris Miller, thank you for having me on. I love you. I'm proud of you. You're a great communicator, a really good friend. And I'm excited to be on for a third time. Just put it on my calendar.
Okay. I'll let you know.
Talk to you soon, folks.
All
Back
right,
to
folks.
studio.
We'll see you next time.
All right, folks.
Okay.
Back to studio.
You're like my echo.
Echo.
Okay.
All
right. We'll see you next time.
All right. See you next time.
I'm not winning here. Huh?
I'm not winning here. I'm winning here.